Hey everyone, welcome to More Than a Title. I'm Aya, and today we're here with Professor John Wixted. Hi, Professor. We're going to be talking about memory and the legal system. Professor, would you tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, I've been a professor here at UCSD for a long time. Before that, I started my undergraduate career also here at UCSD. I was an undergraduate, went off and got my PhD at Emory University in Atlanta, then came back here as a professor 1988, and I've been here ever since. And the whole time here, I've been studying memory and teaching classes on memory and related topics.
So you've been here since 1988?
Sad to say. That's how long I've been here. Yeah, it's hard to believe.
It's not even sad. It's cool. Do you like it?
I absolutely love UCSD. I've loved UCSD from the moment I set foot on the campus before my first year as an undergraduate. Yes.
Wow.
I mean, to me, UCSD is heaven on earth. I can't imagine a better place to be an undergraduate. It's a strong Research One university. I remember some of the professors I was taking classes from when I realized they were actually doing some of the research that was showing up in the textbooks. You know, the textbook writers were writing about their research. I couldn't believe that, that I was at a place where that happened. And it's lovely place to be. I would study down on the beach. It was crazy. I was like, did I die and go to heaven? And then I've been back here for many years as a professor, and I still feel the exact same way about UCSD. Everybody calls me a walking commercial for UCSD.
Wait, so you love being an undergraduate for UCSD, right?
I did.
Okay, so as an undergrad, everyone that's watching, what do you think we should do to take advantage of it as much as we can?
Well, I keep telling students this: go to your classes. Don't watch them on the screen.
Right.
You don't realize how much better it is to do it live and in person. And my memories, of live in person, even when I wasn't the one interacting, it's just so much more real, so much better. I would recommend that. The second thing I'd recommend is what you already know. If you've been here for a while, you have to study harder than you think. It's harder than you think. I remember my first quarter at UCSD, what a cold, hard slap in the face it was, how much I had to study just to keep from drowning in my classes. It's hard. It's good, but it's hard, and it takes a while to get used to that. So study more than you think you have to is my second piece of advice. Go to your classes, study more than you think you have to, and realize you're never going to get an education like this as long as you live. Not even in graduate school. I mean, the education that you get at UCSD is so diverse, and you're getting it from mostly really good people. You're never going to get an experience like that as long as you live.
Wow.
I think that's what I've learned, And when and use of all the undergraduate institutions in this country, UCSD really is one of the better ones for a lot of reasons. But when I got to graduate school, I realized I was so much better prepared for graduate school than my the other 9 people in my graduate class. I mean, UCSD just really prepares you well for life. It prepares you broadly, because you don't know what knowledge you're going to need down the line. It's not really super predictable, so you get this broad education, kind of intensive investigation. And the payoff for that is not really apparent while you're an undergrad, but becomes more apparent later in life.
Yeah.
Take advantage of what you got here. It's really good. It's better than you think. You'll learn that later in life.
Wow.
You don't know that yet.
Not yet, but when I come out?
Yeah, well, years after you come out, then you
Wow.
begin to realize that was really a special educational experience that I got at UCSD. And right now, you're probably thinking, I want to get out of here and graduate so I don't have to study anymore. The day will come when you think, I wish I could have that back. That day will come.
No, that's honestly, for me, I really like being here. I'm really enjoying it so far. But what do you think was your favorite memory from being an undergrad at UCSD?
My favorite memory is probably there was it was a chemistry class, and this Professor Singer. And in the textbook they were talking about Singer, but Singer is a common name, and he's teaching about or was he biochemistry? I'm not even sure now after all these years. But anyway, he's talking about how molecules are transferred across a cell membrane, and reading about in the textbook, a Singer guy worked out that theory, and I'll never forget the day a student said, excuse me, professor, whose theory is that? And he said, that's my theory. I'm like, what the hell? This theory that I'm reading about in my textbook, it's this guy that I'm
Yeah.
taking a class from. And then I realized that's not uncommon at UCSD, that,
Yeah.
that the professor's names show up in your textbook. That
Wow.
transformed my understanding of where I was, at the time. As an undergraduate, I was kind of clueless about a lot of things, including where I was. I even come to UCSD, I picked it because it's like beautiful and close to a beach. It was really, my mother who researched colleges that she thought I should go to, and she thought Revelle College, UCSD seems like a good fit for you, John, and that's the only reason I went. I don't care where I go to college. I just want to go to a beautiful place near a beach, and that took me a while to realize where I was.
Oh,
And it was a more special place than I thought I was. I knew I was at UCSD, but I didn't realize, the caliber of the professors and how much. And then only later did I realize how much I really learned at this place and appreciated it way more later than I did at the time.
Mm-hmm. But then, are you in a textbook? Maybe.
Yeah,
You are in a
starting to
textbook?
show up in the textbooks now. Yeah, because our understanding of eyewitness memory is changing a lot. It takes a long time for that stuff to show up in textbooks, but it's showing up now in textbooks. Yeah, so I'm hoping some students have that reaction too. Some of them probably do. I don't know.
Some of them do.
Well, my kids, they're now in their mid to late 20s, but my daughter, when she was in high school, her high school textbook, she saw my name in the high school textbook and even showed it to the teacher. That's my dad. Like,
No way.
So I show up in textbooks sometimes.
No way. That's so cool. Imagine like being in a school and you're just like, my dad's in this textbook. I feel so cool. But then, what first drew you into studying memory and the eyewitness testimony?
So I first got drawn into basic science of memory. How does memory work in the brain? That's what I first got interested in. Cognitive models of memory. And I got into that in graduate school. I was going to be a clinical psychologist, and I took this class from a guy who was teaching memory, and it just turned out to be so much more interesting than I expected. I don't know why. It just seemed that, that of all things seemed super interesting to me. And so I decided I'm going to not be a clinical psychologist. I'm going to be an experimental psychologist studying how memory works. And again, it was basic mechanisms of memory, cognitive mechanisms, neural mechanisms, not anything having to do with the real world. And I literally spent 20 years doing that kind of research. Nothing to do with eyewitness memory, nothing to do with memory in the real world. And I always tell the story of my wife one day saying, like, how does this work that you do help people? And I told her, it doesn't help people, but I'm at UCSD doing work that I love. Like, I feel like I died and went to heaven. It doesn't help anybody, but I love it. And students would always say in their ratings of my class that he clearly loves his work. And this is before I got into eyewitness memory. Now I love it even more. But it was like clear that I loved it, and I did. Then about, let's see, let me do the numbers. It was like 22 years of that kind of research, and finally some famous professor, a different professor, was asked to write a chapter for a book. I have that book somewhere.
No
It'd take
way.
me too long. Yeah, I do, but
What's
it's
the
somewhere,
book called?
I think Memory and the Law.
Memory and the Law.
But he got asked to write a chapter for that book, and that's about eyewitness memory. And he was also a basic researcher, and he knew I was studying confidence. I was studying confidence in memory, not for the real world, but in models of memory. What does confidence tell us? And so he knew I knew a lot about confidence. He's asked to write a chapter on confidence and accuracy in eyewitness memory. So he asked me to join him in writing that chapter. And I said, nope, not doing it. I don't want to get into eyewitness memory. What a mess. That's the real world, Like, I like science where you can control things and fit mathematical models and think deeply through things. I don't like the real world where you have to deal with it's a mess, I told him not doing that. And he kind of insisted that I do it, and he was a good friend and a mentor and everything, so I finally did it, and I started reading about eyewitness memory so I could help him write this chapter. It's the first time I read about eyewitness memory. Because the basic science of memory, they don't read what those guys say. The eyewitness memory researchers don't read what the basic scientists have to say. Different worlds, weirdly different worlds. And so I start reading what they're saying about eyewitness memory and realizing they don't know all this stuff that we figured out about memory. You know what I mean? And they don't know that they don't know. Well, see, I didn't know that they don't know. For a while, I'm reading their papers and I'm trying to figure out, do they not know what we've figured out? Or do they know it and have figured out a better way to do the experiments and analyze their data. For some reason, they're not paying attention to this. I eventually realized they don't know what we've learned from, more than a century of research over here in basic science. There's a lot of important things they don't know. And I realized that only because he asked me to write that chapter, and I had to look at what they were doing over here in that other world. And that's when I decided, I got to write some papers telling them, look, got some news for you. We know some stuff over here, and we know how memory works. The basic mechanisms of memory, we've learned a lot. And just because it's eyewitness memory doesn't mean that the same mechanisms don't apply. They do apply.
Right.
Memory's memory, whether it's eyewitness memory or any other kind of memory. It's nothing different. Anyway, that's when I jumped into that field about 2012, 2013. Then I started doing eyewitness memory research and applying it. And then things really started changing in our understanding of eyewitness memory. And then really wild things started happening, such as contributing to exoneration of innocent prisoners who've been in prison for decades. So that's like the whole arc of that story. Yeah, that's how it happened. And initially, the eyewitness memory research, so when I jumped in 2012, 2013, it was insanely controversial. It wasn't like people said, oh, good point, you got a good argument there. No, it was they couldn't believe some of the things that I was saying. It just seemed crazy to them, like it couldn't possibly be true. And I understand why they thought that, because really, to them, they had pretty much figured everything out. And then you have this guy coming in talking about, what we learned from mathematical psychology and neuroscience and stuff like that. There's no possible way. And it reverses some long-standing conclusions. It reverses them. No, it was as if I was saying, ESP is real. We can read other people's minds. It was that kind of far out to them.
What?
But, yeah, it was. So initially they just resisted with all their might. So the first thing I jumped into was, you might not know, but if you witnessed a crime today, let's say you saw some guy steal someone's purse and run off, and so you call the police and they come. A few days later, they figure out who might have done it, and you were a witness. You saw the guy, and they'll show you a photo array and say, do you see the guy who did it in these photos? Okay? And usually it's 6 photos. They've got the picture of the guy who they think did it, maybe. They want to see if you pick this guy. And then 5 fillers, they call them, 5 similar looking guys who they know didn't do the crime. So they show you this photo lineup. Do you see the guy who did it? That's how the police test eyewitness memory early in an investigation, okay? I don't know, have you ever seen that on TV?
I have.
They do? Okay.
Yeah.
So by the time I got involved in the field in 2012-ish, 2013, for more than 20 years, the field had been saying it's better if the police don't show the 6 photos all at once, but instead one at a time. Is this the guy who did it? Yes or no? If you say no, they go on to the next one. How about this guy? No. This guy? No. This guy? And if you say yes, they stop. That's called a sequential photo lineup, one at a time rather than all at once. Okay? And that research for 1985 to 2012-13 was so influential that thousands of police departments had stopped showing the photos simultaneously and switched to doing it sequentially. Okay, so that's super strong real-world impact.
Yeah.
Most psychological research doesn't have anywhere near that kind of actual impact on the real world, but this is a third of there's 18,000 law enforcement agencies in the U.S., every little town has their own police department. There's 18,000. And 6,000 of them retrain their officers to, instead of showing them 6 photos all at once, do it one at a time, because science says that's a better way.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did when I jumped in 2012 and 13 is I said, that's wrong. That's backwards. It's 6 photos is better than one at a time. 6 photos all at once is better. And the first editor who handled my paper, how we do it in science, we submit papers for publication, they often get rejected. He rejected my paper saying, you know what, you really want to challenge what they call the sequential superiority effect? That ship has sailed, he said. I'm rejecting your paper.
Oh, wow.
And it got rejected from journal after journal. Finally, we got it into a journal. And by the end of the year, it was picked as the best research article in that journal that year. I mean, and it was for the next few years, it was incredibly controversial as the people who had come up with the sequential procedure fought back, saying, no, this is wrong, and I'm saying, this isn't my pipsqueak little idea. This is like common knowledge in basic science, and I'm just bringing it to you, people. This isn't, and they were thinking it's, I don't know, my own personal sort of theory, and it wasn't. It was the stuff that had been figured out over the decades in basic science, and eventually that settled down, and then it turned into a second fight.
A second fight?
Even more controversial.
What? You
can't believe it, because how controversial. There's no way I can explain to you in a way that I can get across how controversial this work was 10 or 11 years ago.
Wow.
When I came in and said, not only is six-pack photo lineup better than one at a time, contrary to what you've been telling the world for decades, you made it go the wrong way. Let's go back to this way. It's better. Eyewitnesses aren't unreliable. And confidence, tells you a lot about their accuracy, and that was heresy. Because that's the other thing that they had thought they had figured out. Eyewitness memory, it's just unreliable. You should never listen to eyewitnesses. Was the message from the field?
Even right after the crime?
Oh yeah, never. See, they're unreliable. Even in our laboratory studies, mock crime, where like if you're in one of those studies, you'd watch a crime video of a guy snatching a purse, let's say, and then we give you a photo lineup. Even under those ideal conditions, the conclusion was eyewitness memory is unreliable, and confidence doesn't tell you anything about accuracy. And if it's that bad under perfect conditions, first test, not even the real world, in a laboratory where everybody knows this is pretend, and, then it couldn't possibly be useful in the real world. Useless in the real world if it's that bad. So the conclusion was eyewitness memory is unreliable across the board. Nobody said listen to what they said on the first test. Nobody was saying that. They were saying don't listen to them. And that's why they were doing research on how do we reduce their errors on the first test. Maybe if we show them sequentially or they won't. But then I came along and said, sorry, they're super duper accurate on the first test, and confidence tells you everything on that first test. There's a diagnostic memory signal on the first test. That is, if they say they're not sure, and they're just guessing it, but they're telling you that, so listen to that. If they say they're confident, well, they're probably right. Listen to that too. And that second thing. Listen to them when they're confident. Nothing is more controversial than that, because they thought they had figured out that eyewitness memory is not reliable, and they're not reliable even when they're confident. They make tons of errors. So I'm coming on. That's true by the time of trial. So they were half right. At trial, that's 2 years after the crime. Confident. Someone get on and say, I'm 100% sure she's the criminal who I saw commit the crime. No, that's not telling you anything. So they were saying that, and I agree with them, but they were saying that about the first test too. I'm like, wait a second, that's wrong. And on the first test, if they say that's the guy who did it, and they're highly confident, it's immediate, it's probably because it matches their memory of the perpetrator, right? That's why they're saying immediately. I was, because a recently formed memory like that is accurate.
A recently formed one.
Do you remember being in this room? Was there anybody else in this room a half hour ago?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
How sure are you?
100%.
And you're right. There were other people. Because that's a recent memory, and recent memories are accurate, and you have to be able to form accurate recent memories or you can't survive. There are people who can't do that. We call them amnesics, and they need 24/7 care, because you can't function in life if you can't form accurate memories of recent events. You have to be able to do that. You have to remember where you parked your car, why you're here, where you're going. You have to be able to remember all that stuff. If you can't, I don't know how I got here. I don't know how long I've been here. I don't know what I'm going to do in the future. I mean, you just can't function.
Right. Can we tie that back to the Russian study you told me about? What was it called? The Russian guy?
So the Russian guy is relevant to the second point, which is that although you have to be able to make accurate memories of recent events, you have to be able to. There's no particular value, and actually there's a cost if you hang on to those memories with like photographic realism forever.
Yeah.
It
So
seems like
photography, like having
photographic memory, yeah, you think it'd be great. You know, it'd be great not just to have accurate episodic memories for recent events, but to have them stay accurate forever. What if our brain did that? Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, right.
It feels like it'd be great.
Right.
And like a court of law wants that. You know, they want those accurate episodic details even 2 years later at the criminal trial. They want to get that memory. And it would not be great.
Oh.
It feels like it would be great. But the problem with hanging on to each separate episode accurately so you can remember it perfectly, it gets in the way of you learning general lessons across episodes.
Right.
It gets in the way of you learning general knowledge about that you can use going forward in different contexts, you know. But this Russian guy that you brought up, this a mnemonist, he was a guy who would, you know, show off his memory abilities. That's how he made a living, actually. And he had the kind of memory that everybody thinks they want. Like, he could memorize a deck of you could show him a deck of cards in random order. Here, first card all the way through 52 cards. Pick them up and say, okay, what were those cards? And he could tell you the deck back without even. Yeah, it'd be amazing. And not only that, he could do it a year later.
What?
Yeah, he could hang on to it forever. And it's like, wow, I wish I had a memory like that. And I'm like, no, you don't, because his problem was he was actually, he was impaired because every episode in his life was different. Like the same person in 2 different episodes, you couldn't learn lessons about what this person was like because they were all separate episodes. There was no general knowledge of this person's personality or something like that. You can't blend episodes together.
And so you're saying that they collect memories and they can see them vividly and remember them at all times, but it doesn't help them because they don't combine it into general
Yes, and what you need, like, you know, you need to get to know what that person's like in general to be able to predict what that person's going to do in the future. And like, I want to get away from that person, and do I want to stay near that person? And if you can't put together those blend of those episodes, then you can't form general knowledge that you need to negotiate life successfully going forward. And that's the kind of memory you need to be accurate. We call it semantic memory. And our semantic memories are accurate, but the semantic memories come from letting episodic memories crisscross and generalize and mish together, and details from one memory get mixed into details from another memory, and so the episodic memories don't stay accurate.
Right.
And the person doesn't realize that they're episodic memories. You have false episodic memories in your brain right now.
Really?
Yes, you do. So why don't you know that? You don't know it because your memories from what you did a year ago don't feel, even when they change, they don't feel wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like, what did you do on your European vacation a year ago? Oh, we were at this great bar in Greece. It was so much fun, and we partied late into the night. And it was actually Sicily, not Greece, and it doesn't matter, you know, if that memory changed and morphed to a different memory because you were also in Sicily and you put different things together, and you'd be like, sure. No, it wasn't Sicily, it was Greece. I can remember it. I can see it in my mind. I have a vivid recollection.
Wow.
And no, half the time those memories are wrong and half the time they're right. You know, it's a mixture. Yeah, but episodic memories don't stay true to the original event.
So confidence, like your confidence level doesn't determine how accurate your memory will be?
It does initially.
Okay.
It tells you everything initially, but eventually it tells you nothing. Okay. So by the time of a criminal trial, confidence is no longer telling you everything, but nobody knows that. So when a witness says, I'm 100% sure that's the guy who did it, the jury, not knowing, wow, that's a very credible witness up there. That looks like a very sincere and credible witness. Wow. And a witness is credible and sincere. They're telling the truth from their perspective. They don't know that their memory now is more, half the time mapping onto something that didn't happen. And they do studies of the way we know this, and we know this like basically for sure, is because sometimes there's a shocking event that happens. Let's hope nothing like that happens in your lifetime. But in my lifetime, a few things have happened, like the space shuttle, which you probably don't even know what that is, but that exploded shortly after takeoff, and it shocked everybody in this country. It was a shocking event in the 80s. And then 9/11, which you probably don't have much memory of that because you're too young, but
I wasn't born.
You weren't even born yet. Okay, so to you, that's just like a historical event, but like
Yeah.
to me, like I remembered that morning,
Wow.
both the space shuttle exploding in the 1980s and 2001 9/11. It's just an unbelievable morning. I can remember it to this day.
Mm-hmm.
That's an episodic memory,
Mm-hmm.
and I keep telling you, those memories change.
Right. They do.
And so one, and they do, because what researchers done for both those events is the next day they got people to write down
What they saw?
from yesterday. How did you get the news? Who were you with? Like your memories from just like you can remember earlier today, you can remember yesterday. So they got
Right.
they got their memories.
Uh-huh.
The next day, had them write down, how did you get the news? Who were you with? How did it make you feel? Things like that.
Yeah.
Then a few years later, they asked them the same questions again,
Uh-huh.
and their memories had changed,
What?
but they're still confident. And you can show them what they wrote,
Uh-huh.
and they're like, okay, that's my writing, but that is not what happened. What I'm remembering now is what happened. See, our episodic memories, vivid, confident episodic memories, feel true.
Yeah.
To the point where you even deny what is almost for sure the actual truth, what you wrote 24
Right.
hours later. That's why you don't learn that this happens to you. You never learn it because they always feel real. So, memories for 9/11. I was with my wife, and I had 2 young kids, very young, and they were, in my memory, upstairs. And a woman was visiting our house for a play date. And we're all standing there, and we look over at TV, and we realize something very major is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we see this building in New York on fire, and there's every channel talking about it, and then the building collapsed. It was one of the most shocking things we're watching live as one of the tallest buildings in the United States come crashing completely down a few hours, I think, after the plane hit it, the first one. Then the same thing happened to the second one. And when it came crashing down, I said to my wife and that woman who were visiting, I hope everyone got out of that building before it came crashing down.
Mm-hmm.
And that woman said something chilling to me. I can't help but think of all the firefighters who just died. And I realized she would know that because her own husband in San Diego was a firefighter. So she would be thinking about those firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it was a tragic day. And so I'm telling that story that I just told you
Yeah.
a few years after 9/11, and my wife is there. And she looks at me and says, that's not what happened. And what do you mean that's not what happened? I can see it. That woman's standing in the kitchen. You're over there. The TV's across the room. What do you mean that's not what happened?
Yeah.
And she said, that woman wasn't visiting that day. And I'm like, you're wrong. I can see it. I can see it like it was yesterday. And like we just disagreed. And then sometime after that, we met that woman again.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, tell my wife you were there.
Yeah.
And she says, I wasn't there. I was not there. I'm like, what do you mean you weren't there? And she said, we had that conversation a couple weeks later. We did talk about that. That was my first thought about the firefighters, but that was a conversation 2 weeks later, and somehow my brain had put it with.
So you have bad memory, and you study memory to improve it.
Well, listen.
Okay.
So about a month ago, I was going to get interviewed by NPR Radio, and I told my wife I was going to tell the story that I just told you. And she looked at me and said, she's changed her mind of what happened.
Oh.
She looks at me and said, yeah, that woman wasn't there, but you weren't there either. I'm like, what do you mean I wasn't there? I was in the kitchen. So in her memory, she was talking to that woman on the phone about, and I was at work or something like that. It's just amazing. And we're both 100% sure of our memories. Memories change, and we don't know it. That's the point. And that's what the legal system most doesn't understand. That witness on the stand, half of what they're saying is true, half of what they're saying is false. It feels true to them, 100% of it feels true. And you don't know which aspects are true or false, even though it's life or death sometimes, but you don't know. And their confidence doesn't help you now anymore. It's too late. The confidence helps you way back at the beginning.
Right.
Focus on what they say early on. Even though all the scientists said don't do that either. They said don't ever listen to eyewitnesses. I'm saying do listen to them. All the evidence shows that that's where the reliable information is.
In the beginning.
Yeah, that's
So
when
then-
confidence tells you something.
Uh-huh.
And there is what I call a diagnostic memory signal, one that can help it, just like a diagnostic test can help you determine if someone has diabetes or not, if it's a good test.
Yeah.
Well, there's a diagnostic memory signal that can help you decide if someone's innocent or guilty on that first test.
Oh, okay. So then, your research, you've been researching this, right?
Yep.
Tell me about the first case that you've done where it's like you've helped somebody come out of prison.
Well, here's the thing about that.
Yes.
So the whole fight initially was about when they say it is the guy on the first test, he's the guilty guy. And I'm saying, you should listen to them. You know, if you have a rape victim say, 24 hours after the crime, you show her a photo on him, and she says immediately, without hesitation, that's the SOB who raped me last night. I'm saying that's probably right. And I'm going to testify for the prosecution if somebody asks me, because memory works at that time, right?
Yeah.
And nobody in this field testifies for the prosecution. I'm like, I'm going to, because that's what all the science says. You know, why? You want that rapist to go free and rape somebody else? You know, that's when memory works. It's diagnostic. And so that's what all the fighting, everyone was fighting about evidence of guilt. They were saying, no, don't listen to that eyewitness, even 24 hours later. And I'm saying, do listen to them very carefully, because you can get the guilty guy. And so people have come around, finally, it's even showing up in the textbooks, that confidence does predict accuracy on the first test, even though sometimes it's going to help the prosecution, which the field didn't seem to like as far as I could tell, but I don't care which side it helps. Now that fight's pretty much over, and everybody began to realize, hey, wait a second, if the first test is reliable and can point reliably in the evidence in the direction of guilt, then it can also point reliably in the direction of innocence if on that first test they say that's not the guy. That's reliable evidence that the police have an innocent person, and you want to let that guy go and find the real perpetrator. You also get reliable evidence of innocence. So listen to the first test, because at trial they're going to be saying, I'm 100% sure that's the guy. And jury's going to believe him, they're going to go to prison. But look back, if on the first test they instead said, I'm sure that's not the guy. Listen to that. We now know that's where you find reliable evidence, whether it points towards guilt or innocence. And so what happened, we realized there's a bunch of people in prison where on the first test, multiple witnesses said, not that guy. And then at trial, they show up and say, 100% sure that's the guy. And so they're in prison, and they've been in prison for 20 years. And now there's a new scientific understanding that maybe we can convince a prosecutor's office or a judge that this is the memory test, and it all points towards this guy's innocence. And this guy, there's no DNA to prove his innocence, but there's memory science now that can help him prove his innocence.
And memory, for the confidence, how far, away from the episode, do you think you can, ask with the first test, you said?
Yeah, first test. So how
far? Yeah.
So what I always say is focus on the first test no matter how far it is. It's usually early in the police investigation. I usually say days, weeks. Things start to get a little dicey when you're talking about months. But when you're talking about years, forget about it. You know, there's all the research shows there's no diagnostic memory signal anymore. But there's no precise answer. And I tell the legal, this is why you need judges and juries. Somebody has to make the call. I don't know if it's days, weeks, months, but just early as you can. And sometimes it's 6 weeks, sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's 2 days, and whatever. Focus on the first test, whatever the interval is. And if it starts getting into years, you're really taking chances for life, even first test. But early on and for a while, it works pretty well. And then that's when, initially the Innocence Project did not like what I was saying at all. Right? I'm saying eyewitness memory is reliable, and they'd been saying, these researchers have been telling us they're unreliable, and we've been saying that ourselves for years and years. And I sounded like I was just trying to stir the pot and rock the boat just to make waves. That's what it sounded like. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm doing. It's actually what all the data show. And then one of them, an attorney for the Northern California Innocence Project, she was the first one to realize that, hey, wait a second. When I go back and look at all my cases that I'm working on, the eyewitnesses weren't confident, just like he's saying. They hadn't ever looked at what the witnesses did on the first test. You know what I mean? They were trying to get people out of prison. Innocence Project is doing that all the time. And then they hear this guy saying, eyewitness memory is reliable, and they're like, I hate that message, I hate that message. And she goes back and says, hey, wait a second. All these cases we're working on, they rejected the lineup on the first test. And Wixted's saying that's evidence of innocence. And we weren't using that. And now we have a new evidence of innocence story we never realized we could be using. And it applies to almost all our cases. And that's what happened. And so I worked with her on the first case. That's the Miguel Solorio case in late 2023. And the LA County Prosecutor's Office, I wrote a report. And Yilmaz, my former student, now PhD, we went up and gave them a talk about a new understanding that first test is where the reliable information is. And they invited us up to give that talk because they were thinking about conceding on Miguel Solorio, conceding, yeah, we may have made a mistake in his case, but we didn't know that when we went up there.
Yeah.
We were working with the Innocence Project, right?
Right.
We didn't realize we were giving a talk to the prosecutor's office that had convicted Miguel Solorio, and they wanted to hear what we had to say. And we went up there and told them what we had to say, and then shortly thereafter they wrote a concession letter, like, we agree, Your Honor, that we may have gotten this one wrong. So we got the Innocence Project saying he's innocent, even the prosecutor saying he's innocent, and a judge exonerated him. It wasn't just based on the science. There's they were already working on his case.
Right.
There was already reasons to think he was innocent, and this just, you add science to the equation and just like really put it over the finish line, and so he got exonerated. And once that worked, other Innocence Projects began to think that maybe I wasn't like Satan after all.
Yeah.
and they look at their cases, and they got a bunch of cases too, and then they've been raining cases on me for the last couple of years to write expert reports, and there's been 5 exonerations now altogether where the science helped, in the exoneration. There wasn't that path before, because before it was like, you can't go in and say, Your Honor, exonerate this guy because eyewitnesses don't know what they're talking about. They're totally unreliable, and they said he's innocent on the first test. That argument doesn't work because you're saying don't listen to them, and they rejected the lineup. But as soon as you realize they can provide evidence of guilt that's reliable, you realize, they can provide evidence of innocence. And then you look and you find all these cases of guys who were basically excluded by the witnesses. Not that guy. And the Charles Don Flores case that I talk about a lot, the death penalty case in Texas, if you go back and look what their star witness said on the first test, the one who identified Charles Don Flores with more than 100% confidence at trial a year after the crime, first day she's saying, white dude with shoulder-length hair. Charles Don Flores is a Hispanic dude with a crew cut, basically, and she makes a composite sketch. White dude, short hair. They hypnotize her. She keeps saying, they wanted her to change her story to the Hispanic dude that they thought was doing it. But she didn't change her story. They showed her a photo lineup with Charles Don Flores in it. She rejected that lineup. So early on, you have all this evidence that it's a white dude with long hair and not Charles Don Flores, a Hispanic dude with a crew cut. All that evidence of innocence that you should have listened to, and nobody knew. And now I'm trying to tell anyone in Texas who cares, you should listen to this new science and then revisit this case instead of executing this guy, which they might do this year. Maybe he deserves a new trial, and a jury should hear about the new science that says this is the memory test that gets you closer to the truth, not what someone says at trial where their memory has changed and they don't know it.
How does the jury react when you say this stuff?
Oh, juries always get it. If it ever gets to a jury, juries totally, it all makes sense to them. Oh yeah, of course, memory early on is more reliable than memory later. And when I say it's not just John Wixted, there's a scientific consensus now. There are consensus papers where the field, we've stopped fighting about that. We've come together. First test. Yeah. And it's more compelling if it's the whole field rather than just me.
Yeah, right.
And juries totally get it. It makes total sense. It makes sense to everybody once you explain it to them. But it's still, you can't just, I can't just shout from the windows, let Charles Don Flores, give him a new trial because there's new science. There's a whole appeals mechanism and everything. And in that case, the prosecution is not conceding, they're fighting it. And when they fight it, it drags it out for years. And the time I get to a case, they come to me and say, Wixted, we want you to write an expert report because it seems to be a Wixted case. I call them Wixted cases. These are cases where the witnesses said it's not him on the first test, that it is him on the last test at trial, in prison for 20 years. They've already been through multiple appeals that have been denied. And so the legal system gets increasingly reluctant to keep revisiting cases, understandably, right? You can't just go on forever. You can't revisit every single case forever. So it gets really hard to get yet another appeal when you've lost a bunch of appeals, even if it's a really good argument. It's a super high bar. It has to be. That's not even a critique of the legal system at all. It has to be. Once you've had multiple appeals already, the bar has to be really high. So if the prosecution doesn't sort of concede, which they often don't, getting over that super high bar is really hard. And this guy in Texas, Charles Don Flores, that's where it stands. I'm trying to get over a very high bar, but with very compelling new science. So but
is that the case you're working on right now?
Yeah, working on right now.
I have one more question for you. If you could change and redesign the justice system from scratch, how would memory evidence be handled?
The police officers would administer an identification procedure or a police interview. Sometimes you test memory that way as early as possible in the investigation. They would follow guidelines that memory scientists have recommended, and it would be video recorded.
Yeah.
And that would be the memory test. And there wouldn't be another memory test. Now, the witness could still testify at trial 1, 2, or 3 years later, sometimes 5 years later, could still testify. But they would just confirm that that's what happened on the first test. That's what, they would like validate that's not an AI, I did that, I was there, is that what you said on the first test? Yes, that's what I said. And that's what their testimony would be. Rather than, do you see the guy in this courtroom who committed the crime? Like, don't even ask that question. That's how I would design it. Okay,
I like that. I like that answer. So then from here, I want to say thank you so much for this conversation. We're going to move on to Office Hours with Aya, and today's Office Hours will be all about memory. I'll be showing you a face of a white male, and then I'm going to have you count down by 3, okay? And then I'm going to show you all the faces, and you're going to tell me if you see the face that you saw before.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
You got it?
I think I got it.
You got it? Okay.
We'll try it and see if I got it.
This is the face that you have to remember. This is not a real person, by the way, so you're going to look at it for 3 seconds. And then you're going to count down by, let's start at 86.
Okay. 86, 83, 80, 77, 74, 71, 68, 65, 62, 59, 56, 53, 50, 47, 44, 41, 38, 35, 32, 29, 26, 23, 20, 17, 14, 11, 8, 5, 2, and now we're below 0.
Yay! Ready?
Ready.
All right. Face number 1. Is this the person?
It is not.
Okay. Face number 2. Is this the person?
It is not. I reject that face with 100% certainty.
Is it this person?
Ooh. But that one's tougher. I'm not sure. I'm still going to say no.
You're going to say no?
But
Are you sure?
It definitely looks like the guy, but I'm...
Are you sure? Okay, all right. Ready?
I'm not sure.
Is this the guy?
100% sure it's that guy.
Okay. I went easy on you. I made you do just a little bit.
Well, see, recent episodic memories are really accurate.
That's true. That's true.
I just formed that memory, and my confidence did predict my accuracy. I was right, wasn't I?
He was right.
Yeah.
But what if I come to you tomorrow and I ask which face was it?
Well, so here's the interesting thing about that. Okay. So there'll be some forgetting. Let's extend it. Let's say you come back in a week and say, which one is it?
Okay.
My memory will have faded, because forgetting happens.
Yeah.
And I won't recognize it as well, maybe. Mm-hmm. And I might even have picked that face, the face I wasn't sure of. Maybe now I'll be picking that face before I even see the real face. And but I would still be unsure. The thing that wouldn't happen, the thing that goes away with longer retention interval is not a confident false memory. Mm-hmm. Your confidence goes down. It's been a week, and your memory's faded, and so you don't confidently misidentify an innocent person. Yeah, you might identify an innocent person, but you're going to know it's not matching your memory because your memory's pretty much gone now.
Yeah.
That's why I say don't ignore confidence like memory scientists said to do for years. Mm-hmm. Listen very carefully, because after a week or more, they might be picking an innocent person, but they're going to let you know they're not sure because that face isn't matching the memory in their brain because that memory's faded away. So that's what happens, and that's why it's essential to take confidence. Whereas so many cases I work on, they'll say the witness positively identified the suspect, and these are police records from 20 years ago. The guy's in prison now, and you look back, and lots of times they didn't identify him. Those are the cases we were talking about before, but sometimes they did identify them, but you don't know if it was confident or not.
Yeah.
I mean, the witness could have said, kind of looks like that guy. Maybe. I'm just guessing. I'm not sure. Officer says, circle that face, put your initials. Now it looks like a positive ID.
Wow.
So in the future, it says, this is evidence that the witness made a positive ID. And I'm like, I don't know if that was confident. If it was not confident, that's like a coin flip.
Yeah.
If it was confident, it's reliable. And we don't know. And researchers told them not to listen to confidence. That might be one reason why long ago they didn't take confidence. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but there's so many guys where it looks like a positive ID and you just don't know if it was confident or not. And that's what you need to know. And you don't. And you never will.
And you never will.
Yeah, because you can't ask somebody now, even if you have the witness 20 years later, and you ask the witness, were you confident 20 years ago when you picked that face?
Yeah.
No matter what that witness says, it's just like memories of 9/11. It's true or false, and you just don't know.
Right, right.
The witness might sincerely remember being confident, or sincerely remember not being very confident, and you just don't know.
Right.
It's too late. That 20-year-old memory can't tell you the truth anymore. So there's lots of cases like that. That's why I say in my ideal world, it'll all be videotaped, for crying out loud.
Oh yeah.
So we got this record, and everybody would know.
Yeah.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet?
Yeah.
We might be there soon?
No.
No?
But there are police departments that are adopting that procedure of videotaping the initial identification procedure.
Good. On that note, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. This has been an amazing conversation, very eye-opening, and you're bringing awareness to our justice system. I want to thank you for that. Thank you for changing it to freeing 5 prisoners. I mean, you're an amazing, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything else you'd like to mention to our audience?
Well, I'll just mention that there's a very large number of cases that I'm working on now that are just like the cases we talked about. And all I can hope is that it's going to be more than 5 exonerated going forward, but we'll see what happens.
Yes, I hope so too. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.